If you want the simple answer, it's no. If you want a better answer, it's a little more complicated than that. Hi everyone, it's been a while since I've uploaded, huh? I've been thinking about how to take the channel going forward. Thought long and hard about it and concluded that I will do game reviews and discussions. Because recently, I've gained a newfound appreciation for video games, and I want to discuss games with you guys, the good, bad, and the ugly. Seems pretty simple if you think about it. A few weeks ago, I was looking into buying Metroid Prime Remastered, and almost everyone who talked about the game said it's one of the best games of all time. So when I bought the game, I was expecting an experience that would change my life or something. It did not change my life, but it was a pretty damn good experience. There will be timestamps in the video so you can skip around each section of this review. If you want to see me play the games that I review live, you can head over to my Twitch, twitch.tv/TeamSilverGamingLive. The next game I'll be checking out is Hollow Knight, if you're interested in that. And on to the review. One of the things I immediately noticed when I booted up the game was the soundtrack. It's not like any game I've ever played before, and trust me, I know my fair share of banger soundtracks in video games. If anything, this music is probably playing in the background of this video right now. The sound designer must have been developing his soundtrack for the limitations at the time. If you don't know what I mean, let me explain. At the time when Metroid Prime was originally released for the GameCube, the sound chip that they were using was pretty outdated even at the time, so the sound producer Kenji Yamamoto had to use a limited amount of instruments. So he made the sound feel very sci-fi, and it fits extremely well for Metroid specifically. Each location of the game has its own soundtrack, and the first location I want to look at is Talon Overworld. Talon Overworld is the first place you land directly after invading the space pirate frigate. In Talon Overworld you can see grass and heavy rain covering your visor, and the music fits the mood of just landing on an alien planet that you've never been before. The next location of interest is Choso Ruins. This was the only location that I was at that didn't make much sense to me at the time. It was rather confusing what the atmosphere was trying to accomplish. After listening to the song quite a bit, it finally made sense to me. In the Choso Ruins, you are exploring a deserted home of the Choso, and it is supposed to feel very off and very unwelcoming, but it can also give you a sense of uncovering the secrets that the ruins have to offer, which is an excellent way of portraying what you are doing most of the time you are there. One of the main locations in the game that always stuck out to me was also Magmoor Caverns. The reason for this was because the entire game up to this point never really felt dangerous. It just felt foreign, and that is how I was expecting the soundtrack to be. Which is fine, but when I entered Magmoor Cavern, I finally realized what this game was heading towards. Putting my feelings aside for Magmoor Caverns as a location, which I will go more in depth on later in this review, it is amazing the feeling of danger you feel going into this location, and you have to prepare yourself for the dangers in this place. Right now, I'm only talking about the main locations you'll be going to, so I won't be talking about Phazon Mines too much, but the ambience didn't really hit with me. The last location I do want to talk about is Phendrana Drifts. When I entered Phendrana Drifts for the first time, I wasn't quite sure where to go. Felt like I entered another planet. Phendrana Drifts is more centered around puzzles and lore, which the music can encapsulate very well, with the slow and lo-fi beats music has in it. But when you do find the bosses in this area, the music can ramp up very fast. If we're going to talk about the music though, we should discuss the enemy soundtracks, which range from very tense to downright bangers. One of my favorite being the Space Pirate themes, because it plays almost all the time in the Phazon Mines when you're fighting the Space Pirates. It almost makes you feel overly tense when the enemies are fighting you, because they're really weak. What makes this theme special though, is the way that it almost lets you know whether you're safe or not. When the music stops playing, you can relax, but then when the music starts playing again, you gotta lock in. Take care of those opponents as fast as you can. Not a lot of games can make me feel that way, but for some reason Metroid Prime can. But also, can we just talk about Ridley's theme? This shit is a certified hood classic. The way that Ridley flies into the artifact ruins and then this theme starts playing was absolutely cold. I had chills running down my spine when I saw Ridley flying in from the mountains. fight was also very difficult for me, which helped the soundtrack feel alive and justifying. The soundtrack of Metroid Prime is the backbone of the atmosphere. It helps the game's world feel alive, and it also helps the enemies feel threatening to the player, in a way that doesn't feel cheap and/or artificial. Soundtracks can make an interesting game, but gameplay is what makes an interesting game a great game. Do I think that Metroid Prime has great gameplay? I 100% agree. In terms of gameplay, Metroid Prime is one of the best. While it is true that Metroid Prime is a first-person shooter, it is a first-person action-adventure game with tons of puzzle solving and backtracking. Now, at first glance, you may be thinking to yourself, how is backtracking any fun? Well, that's what I first thought when I started playing Metroid games this year. When you find a dead end and you remember a place that you couldn't previously access, you get an aha moment. It feels awesome, and you're rewarded by the game progression that follows. These moments are some of the best in the game. One of the reasons that I say that Metroid Prime isn't a first-person shooter is because of the game's lock-on feature, which allows you to lock onto enemies or objects, essentially making it impossible to miss. One of the biggest features that sets Metroid Prime apart from most other games is the game's scanning feature. This allows you to scan objects and the environment, and will give you details about the object that you scan. This allows the developers to place the story into the environment, which is absolutely genius if you had to ask me, and no other game I've played before has ever taken this approach. Suppose you want a story, you're gonna have to find it for yourself. Another big feature is beam and visor swapping. When you're playing Metroid Prime, you'll get different visors that you'll have to switch through. Each of them have different capabilities, like seeing through walls, being able to see heat signatures, and scanning objects. The same thing also applies to the beams that you obtain in the game. One is rapid fire, but it's the weakest out of all of them. One is an electric attack that can interact with electrical conduits in the environment. One is an ice-based attack that can freeze opponents, and the last beam is a heat-based laser. It's super awesome, but it has a medium speed fire rate. This mechanic spices up the game a lot and makes it so that you aren't just shooting, but maneuvering and learning when to use certain visors, which is the genius of these developers. The structure of the game is one of the things about the game that you either adore or despise. The game has you progress through rooms and locations that you will come across dead ends that you can only get past if you have a certain power-up or something that can help you get past the dead end. This usually comes as a power-up like a new beam or visor, but it can also be a scannable object that will unlock a new elevator or gadget somewhere on the map. If you like backtracking and solving puzzles, you'll adore this, but if you're not a big fan, you'll probably find it tedious and it will sour your enjoyment of the game, for sure. One of the biggest disappointments in the game, for me at least, was Magmore Caverns. This location pissed me the hell off. It was linear and it was quite literally a straight line, with elevators that led to all the other main locations, including the Phazon Mines. It was never fun to backtrack through because there were literally not be anything interesting. Can I tell you how I was scared shitless while down in the Phazon Mines? Every time I'd go into a room, I would see like 4 space pirates flock towards me extremely fast, and the music only plays after you see the space pirates. So when you're just exploring, there's almost no indication of danger until it's right in front of your frickin' face. And it helps set the Phazon Mines apart from other locations in the game. Like I said earlier though, the ambience in the Phazon Mines is lackluster, and it's plain and boring. But it strives in its raw difficulty. When you enter the Phazon Mines, the difficulty goes from a 7-ish to like a 10 instantly, as space pirates bombard you in almost every room of this location. I died more times in Phazon Mines than any other location of the game, and it's a damn welcome challenge, I'll tell you that much. Before we go any further, I would like to offer you a deal though. You receive an entertaining video. I receive a subscription for you. My current subscriber goal is 100 subs, so it would greatly help. Now, does that sound like a good deal to you? That's what I thought, viewers. Good choice. Now let's continue. One of the biggest parts of the gameplay, in my opinion, is the boss fights. A wise Nintendo man once said, if it isn't fun, why bother? To nobody's surprise, the boss fights in Metroid Prime are spectacular and show the brilliance of the game design in full force. One of my favorite bosses in the game is Flagara, because of its method of defeat. To beat Flagara, you have to make sure it doesn't get direct sunlight from the solar panels. You have to activate these solar panels by simply shooting the bottom of them and lifting them. Once you've lifted a few solar panels though, Flagara becomes weakened. You could go into the tunnel, use the morph ball bombs, and explode it from the bottom. The boss design is so unique, and is what I really look for in bosses. On that note, I really love the Ridley fight as well.
But Silver, you just said that you look for bosses with unique gameplay elements. But the only thing you need to do to defeat Ridley is shoot him. Yes, young viewer, you are correct. You just shoot Ridley until he dies. But that's not why I love the fight, though. It's purely the action and the music that makes this fight so memorable to me. One last thing that I'd like to say, though, is that if a boss is intense and action-packed, sometimes I can overlook the mechanics of the fight, or lack thereof. I know I've been gushing grannies over this game for like over 10 minutes now, but I do have some problems with the game overall. It's to do with the progression. Call me impatient, but I hate it when I'm progressing through the game in like a straight line, reach a dead end, look around, only for the game to tell me that I should be on the other side of the freaking map. And yes, to answer the question, I did play with the hint system because I'm not a psychopath. Anyway, having to go to the opposite side of the map to obtain an item to progress forward, the game is not hinted whatsoever. It's actually quite frustrating, but regardless, I really enjoy my time with this game. And that's about my main critique for the game. I think that when Metroid Prime 2 gets a remaster, I'll definitely play it and I'll see how much it improved from the original. Thank you for staying till the end. It means a lot to me. Also, just to clarify, I'll still upload regular gameplay now and again. It's just that I want to create more unique content and have some diversity. I'm also creating a VOD channel for Team Silver Gaming Live called Silver VODs. Metroid Prime is not one of the best games of all time, but it's definitely a really freaking good. You should go buy it right now. I'll be seeing you in the next one. Also, I'm streaming Hollow Knight on Twitch tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, so check it out, please. I'm begging you. I need money.